What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to World According to Briggs, and today we're gonna see what's up with the country of Ukraine. Ukraine has been in the news a whole bunch lately, so I thought maybe we could shed a little light on this amazing country. Most Westerners don't know much about Ukraine. As a matter of fact, that's like the go-to comeback for all those political junkies and zealots on the internet. Whenever someone brings up the country of Ukraine, do you even know where Ukraine is? It's all the time. They say it like you have to be a Ukrainian historian to have any kind of concern about what's going on in the country. If you haven't watched these What's Up videos before, these are explainer videos where we give you facts, trivia about a city, or in this case, a country. We look at the history, the demographics, tourist spots, and a few other things to give you an idea about the place. Ukraine, and the land that actually is Ukraine now, is a big country and it's got a long history. This is a 20-minute video. We're gonna miss some stuff, but we'll do what we can. All right, let's take a look at Ukraine. The history of Ukraine is long and very interesting. There's evidence of Neanderthal settlements that goes far back as 32,000 BC. They were invaded by the Mongols at one point, so was Russia and most of this area, but they were invaded by the Mongols. During the Middle Ages, the area was a key center of the East Slavic culture. Modern-day Russia got its start in the 9th century in the area where the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, sits today. More on that later. The territory was split during the 17th and 18th centuries between Poland and the Russian Empire. Eventually, they had a national movement, and they were recognized as the Ukrainian People's Republic, and that was declared on June 23, 1917. And in 1922, Ukraine joined the Soviet Union. And that's when things got ugly. Stalin decided that the farms were now owned by the Soviet Union, and the people that owned them before had to work them. Many Ukrainians, totally unhappy with this situation, slaughtered their own livestock rather than handing it over to the Soviet Union. Now, there's a lot that goes into that, but as you can imagine, Stalin was not happy. So he sent in the military and, of course, the secret police. They started arresting people that weren't keen on the whole Soviet Union thing, and they started arresting farmers that weren't producing enough. They had really unrealistic quotas they had to meet. So these people start getting arrested. Well, that was supposed to send a message to all the other farmers to start producing more or whatever, magically come up with whatever they're supposed to have. Well, it backfired because they've arrested all these farmers that knew how to work the land, and production dropped even lower. This led to millions starving to death in what they called the Great Famine. So if things weren't bad enough then, World War II hits. In 1941, the Germans invaded Ukraine, killing millions of Ukrainians. By 1943, the Germans were losing the war, and things got a little bit better, but it was still bad. Ukraine lived under Soviet rule until it folded in 1991 and they became an independent country. Here's some quick facts about Ukraine you should probably know. It's the second largest country by area in Europe after Russia. It is one of the poorest countries in Europe with a very high poverty rate and severe corruption. But it is one of the largest grain exporters in the world, so that's good. That keeps their people fed. It also has the third largest military in Europe after Russia and France. Ukraine is the second most literate country in the world. Nearly 100% of Ukraine's adult population is literate. The only country that beats them is North Korea, but we're not really sure if those numbers are real. North Korea actually claims everyone over the age of 5 in the entire country can read. Ukraine's population is a little bit odd. I mean, besides the fact that they lost millions during Soviet rule and World War II, they've had a serious population decline. It actually peaked in 1993 with 52 million residents. Since then, they've lost almost 9 million in population. They're sitting right now at 43 million, and it's estimated that in the next 2 decades, they will continue to lose at least 10 million every single census, or whatever they call their census there. The reason for this, they have a low birth rate and a high death rate. It has serious poverty issues, which has chased people out of the country. And then, of course, they have the ongoing conflict with Russia, which If it hasn't killed people, it's chased a lot of people out of the country. More on that later. About 67% of the population of Ukraine lives in the urban areas, and their life expectancy is 73 years old. 77.8% of the population is Ukrainian or born in the Ukraine. 17.3% is Russian, and everyone else, Moldovans, Romanians, Belarus, Bulgarians, Hungarians, and Poles, make up about 4%. 82% of Ukrainians claim to be religious, where only 7% say they're atheist. When it comes to their industries, Ukraine is all over the map. Ukraine is one of the world's largest grain exporters. It produces nearly all types of transportation vehicle and spacecraft. Since their independence, Ukraine has maintained its own space agency called the State Space Agency of Ukraine, or SSAU. Between 1991, when they got their independence, and 2007, they've launched 6 self-made satellites and over 100 launch vehicles. They produce and process their own natural gas and petroleum. However, they import most of their energy supplies. About 80% of their natural gas supply is imported from Russia for some frickin' reason. They have so much, but they still get it from Russia, which I'm sure has come to a halt right now. They have a large, heavy industry base and is one of the largest refiners of metal products in Eastern Europe. They're also well known for the production of high technology goods and transportation products. They also have the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. Now, as far as IT and other tech companies, there are over 1,000 IT companies in Ukraine. And in 2017, 13 of those made the list of the 100 best outsourcing service providers in the world. They have a lot of tech going on there. So this is normally where we talk about the different neighborhoods when we're talking about the United States and cities. But since we're talking about a country, we're just going to talk about their best cities. First of all, Kiev is not a bad city at all. But probably one of the best cities to live in is Kharkiv. I'm sorry if I butchered that. My Russian isn't as good as it should be. But Kharkiv is near the Russian border on the east side of the Ukraine. It's like directly east from Kiev. This is a beautiful city with amazing architecture, food, parks, great people. Right now, being kind of right there near the Russian border, it might not be the best place to be living, but all the numbers I'm giving you are non-invasion times. Kharkiv has a population of 1.4 million residents. Now, I'm going to give you how much they make there and stuff in American terms or US dollars. The average salary here is about 510 American dollars, and the average rent for a one-bedroom place is about $300. Kharkiv has a lot of excitement. They've got great clubs, bars, restaurants, possible invading army just outside of town. You know, excitement. During normal times, the tourism in Ukraine is pretty good. They have beautiful land, great things to do, just like any other country. Like I said, they got bars, clubs, beautiful cities, skiing, whatever you want to do, you're going to be able to find in Ukraine. But where they shine is the amount of castles and ancient fortresses they have. If you are a history buff, this is a great place to visit. This is a country that's been invaded by everyone from Germany to the Mongols to the Soviets to Russia right now. They've built a lot of fortresses over their history, and most of them are still standing. Okay, so now we'll get to the part where I'm going to explain what's going on with the Russia-Ukraine situation and the invasion that's going on right now. You have to kind of go back to the old Soviet Union days. That's a good place to start. The Soviet Union was Russia, and then they expanded to include a whole bunch of other countries. Ukraine, Georgia, Belarus, Uzbekistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, the list goes on. And in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed and all these countries became independent and went their own way. Well, for a lot of Russians, that was perfectly fine, I guess, because they were, the whole Soviet thing had played out and Russia wanted to be their own people again, and these countries wanted to be their own countries again. But the thing is with Ukraine was the most closely tied to Russia than any other country in the Soviet Union. So it kind of stung when they decided they wanted to be their own thing. I mean, at the time, Mikhail Gorbachev, he was the leader of the Soviet Union when it faded, and his mother was actually Ukrainian. And this is the makeup of a lot of families in both Ukraine and Russia. These two countries are intertwined in many ways, not just economically, in a lot of different ways. So to a lot of Russians and a lot of Ukrainians, Russia and Ukraine are just one thing, and it's hard for a lot of them to accept that it's two different countries. One of those people that finds it extremely hard to accept is Vladimir Putin. In this State of the Union thing he did back in 2005, he called the collapse of the Soviet Union as the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century. In that speech, he went on to make it sound like there's a whole bunch of Russians being held captive in the Ukraine, or, they're the other side of this border and they can't get back home to the motherland type thing. So Vladimir Putin has always had it bad for Ukraine. He wants them back. In 2004, Ukraine had a very pro-Russia president. And in true fashion, they had a rigged election. Remember, Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. There were protests and everything went crazy. Then the Supreme Court of the Ukraine said, no, this was a rigged election. And the guy who would run against him was placed in office. Of course, he had to recover from being poisoned at this point. The poison guy stays president until 2010, when the pro-Russia guy gets reelected as the president of the Ukraine. And then protests start in 2013 because the president Yanukovych decides he wants to quit doing business with the European Union and start dealing with Russia more closely. Well, this goes against what the people had wanted. About 63% of the population said they were on board with doing business with the European Union and not with Russia. So these protests turned ugly and the military got involved. The president passed some anti-protest laws and one thing leads to another and 98 protesters die, 15,000 are injured, and more than 100 go missing. Who goes missing in a protest? You either go home, get arrested, or get killed in this case, and then they find you on the street. So after that goes down, the parliament removes the pro-Russia president and they call for new elections. Russia takes this opportunity to go into Crimea, which is part of Ukraine, and basically says, this is ours. Now, there's a whole bunch that goes into this, but I'm just highlighting some of the weird crap that was happening during this time. So 2014, Russia is in Crimea. They basically annexed it, and it is, for all intents and purposes, Russia's at this point. Well, here we are in 2022. They're doing the same thing. Russia continues to carve out portions of Ukraine and fold it back into Russia. The two areas that he sent troops into yesterday and today are what he called separatist groups. These are part of Ukraine that don't want to be in the Ukraine anymore. They want to come to Russia. At least that's what they're saying. So if Vladimir Putin gets his way, Ukraine will just become part of Russia, like it was in the old Soviet Union days. Part of Soviet Union, not Russia. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways, I get this feeling, because if you look at it from his point of view, it's sort of like this if it was happening in the United States. Let's say the Soviet Union here in the United States would look like the United States, Canada, and Mexico. All together, we become one big country. Years go by, and we decide to split. Well, that sucks, and we wish it was back to normal, but Canada's doing their own thing now, Mexico's doing their own thing, but why is Texas leaving? That's how Vladimir Putin and a lot of Russians see the Ukraine, like it was a state, and now it's gone. So of all the countries that left the Soviet Union, the Ukraine is like if we lost Texas. And he wants it back. Vladimir Putin feels the only reason that Ukraine is separate from Russia right now is because of outside forces like the European Union or the United States, NATO, whatever. Putin feels that they've been coaxed away from Russia. Now, if you look at it from another angle, he doesn't want Ukraine joining NATO. That's like putting the enemy in your backyard. So as of right now, that's kind of the situation with Russia and Ukraine. Where it goes tomorrow, the next day, by the time you watch this 3 weeks from now, we could be in a full-blown war with it. But right now, that's where it stands. Russia's gone into Ukraine to kind of carve it up. They're like cut out a piece of pie in 2014. Here in 22, they're back for seconds. A lot of famous people have come out of the Ukraine. Most of them came out when it was still part of the Soviet Union. Here's a few. As far as sports go, you've got Fedor Emelianenko, who is one of the best UFC or MMA fighters ever to fight. You have the Klitschko brothers, who are big in boxing. Mila Jovovich, who played a great part in Joan of Arc, by the way. The Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal. Golda Meir, who was the 4th prime minister of Israel. They have a whole bunch of hockey players and football or soccer players also, which I can't pronounce half their names, so I'm not even going to try. So my take on the Ukraine is it's a beautiful country with amazing people, and it is rich in history. They're in a really bad place right now, and we hope it works itself out. Something good happens with this whole thing. But right now, things look pretty bleak in the Ukraine. I follow one girl who lives in Kiev, and she's a YouTuber. She took her 3-year-old to stay with family in Poland. Now she's back in Kiev. She's going to get some more stuff and leave if it starts getting ugly. But yeah, let's just hope for the best for Ukraine. Maybe it'll work itself out without a whole bunch of people getting killed. All right, everyone. So that's this video. There's a lot of holes in this video, and I understand, but it's a less than 20-minute video about a subject that needs about 3 hours, honestly. And I'd still be scratching the surface at a 3-hour video. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Be nice to each other.